Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us at Wickersoft here today for this latest webinar. My name is Jim Patterson. I'm in a business development role with Wickersoft, and joining me today is Matthew Willey, who will be conducting the demonstration portion and is one of our product gurus here at Wickersoft. Our topic today is Microsoft Agile PPM, when your teams are agile, but leadership thinks waterfall. And we'll go into some concepts there on how to bridge that gap. Topics we're going to cover today is today's challenges. They kind of breed the topic and the need for the solutions that we're going to discuss today. We're going to talk about overall unified work management concepts and how they translate into bimodal PPM, and discuss with you some overview of that concept as well as some use cases. Then we'll go into demonstration of how we can resolve these things with the Microsoft technologies today, including Project Online. And then we'll wrap up with some summary on things like value and benefits and some special offers and next steps that you might want to take if you want to pursue some of the things that you're looking at here today. So let's talk about some of today's challenges. It's really the rise in technology that is breeding the need for a lot of this bimodal capabilities and agile project and portfolio management. The idea here is that most companies, whether or not they're considered low tech or not, are becoming software companies at their core. Things like department stores and brick and mortar buildings have been supplanted by the digital online Amazons and other iterations that are available out there today. You know, things like our Blockbuster videos has become streaming services like Netflix and Hulu, et cetera. Transportation has become, you know, app ride sharing with organizations like Uber, Lyft, et cetera. And even some of the simple things like in our fast food restaurants and ordering soft drinks has gone from a more manual to a more software-driven experience as we go on through. So the idea here is that we become software companies, and the nature of the projects of which we have to deliver in this whole digital transformation affects everybody in the organization, whether it's the executives who have to come up with new business models and strategies to leverage this new landscape and reach customers in a more effective and profitable way. The PMOs who have a variety of different mixes of projects now, both technical and non-technical alike. The software development organizations that need to find faster ways to go to market and take advantage of shorter windows of opportunity, as well as the support organizations that once we go to market, making sure that the customers are happy in using the things that we put out to marketplace. At the end of the day, it's really been transformational in the marketplace as far as how we approach projects. So change is the new norm, where in the past, traditional project management and more waterfall type methods, you know, had more stage gate, phase-oriented type of projects that were more steady as she goes. Let's set up the requirements and then let's kind of work through these things in a long-range, long-term fashion, has become today a more unpredictable business environment where we're constantly planning for change and responding to change. Meaning, once we get requirements and start working on something, that the outcomes that we're looking for or the needs of the customer, both internal and external, may change while we're working, and we have to respond to that. Otherwise, we risk delivering something at the end of the day that does not hit the mark. So to that end, Agile project management adoption is on the rise. Version 1 does an annual State of Agile survey every year, and in 2018, haven't adopted Agile across the board, across the entire organization, it's becoming something that's in play in almost all organizations, and it has to be dealt with, and to that effect must be dealt with effectively. Now, leadership sometimes has concerns about adopting Agile. And sometimes they have traditional ways of looking at things and looking at the business, and they have to run a solid business both from a financial and a strategic perspective. And sometimes things like the perceived lack of upfront planning in Agile, or the fact that management loses control sometimes in this team-driven type of approach. And things like lack of documentation and maybe lack of understanding prevents Agile adoption from an organization from the top C levels all the way down through the team levels. Now, teams tend to adopt it because it helps them execute in the way they want to do their pieces of things. But when leadership has concerns for the overall organization, of which Agile may or may not fit everything, the idea here is that we have a gap that we may need to bridge within many organizations. Now, the PMI had a publication called Capturing the Value of Project Management Through Organizational Agility, and in it they say that smart organizations realize that using Agile techniques such as Scrum or DevOps is not the only or even the best indicator of an organization's speed or flexibility. What they went on to say was that most Agile organizations are most likely to use several different project management approaches, maybe different flavors of Agile, maybe some waterfall, maybe some hybrids of both. And the idea is that we find in our experience that most organizations are of this ilk, that have to figure ways to make this thing work well together. Ultimately, what's out there today because of this is, with different natures and types of work and different work methods and processes, most organizations have ended up over time with very siloed pieces of information and solutions, which is disconnected systems and processes. In the middle silo, we're showing project management that may use traditional things like Microsoft Project or a variety of other tools that are out there in the marketplace today, and do more traditional, more waterfall-driven type of project management. Now, on the right side silo, where we have application management and application development, people have gravitated toward things like Visual Studio and development environments that have Agile tools built in, or tools like JIRA that have more Agile-oriented approaches to doing things, and other ones like version 1. And the idea is that people have been using separate applications to manage those types of projects in a whole different silo of information and systems. And then there's unstructured work like service management work, things like in ServiceNow or in Dynamics or Service Cloud, that incidents and things come in on more of an ad hoc basis, but it is definitely a part of significant workload for many resources in an organization. And this doesn't even factor in the myriad of spreadsheets and other innovative things that people have done within organizations to tackle the needs of a variety of other different types of work. The offshoot is resources that have to execute on this oftentimes have to monitor and look at a variety of different sources, maybe a half a dozen or more, to get the total picture of everything that's being asked of them to do, let alone having to prioritize what they should be working on first. So the technology-driven challenge is, how do I find my way through this maze of processes and work and applications to manage all my work? And the idea is it breeds, and I won't read through all these things, you can see these, but these are kind of the symptoms of things that happen. You know, in a cross-functional organization, how do we coordinate in a way that's, you know, effective? You know, how do we do things that aren't very manual or trying to mash up data? At the end of the day, we don't want this to result in poor customer service because we have inefficient ways of doing things. And in this picture, where we actually have a brick wall that's a barrier for your organization, this is truly what ends up happening. If we don't bridge the gap of these silos effectively, we can end up with low response times. We can end up with no consistent processes or disconnected data or ineffective ways of working. Ultimately, we can end up with confused and unhappy employees in this landscape, which can also lead to turnover or low morale and other things like that. And the idea here is we don't want any of this to happen, and we want to find ways to mitigate any of these things from occurring. So let's look at kind of the concepts of unified work management and what that means. What that means is that in today's landscape, there's a hierarchy or even different levels of work management that interrelate or support one another. From the top level executive strategies that are done, where strategic plans and overall enterprise architectures are developed, where there's innovation or ideation on what we should be tackling, especially in product-driven type of organizations that breed new product development and the strategies we're doing on what we're going to go to market with, and just overall performance plans and budgets from a strictly business perspective are things that are all developed at a higher level. And if you unpeel the onion down to the next layer, that breeds then programs and portfolios of work that support those strategies ideally. And the idea is that we should be in alignment so that the objectives, the initiatives, the applications, and the services that we're delivering on should support the stated strategies at that higher level. And then when you start breaking that down into work execution and collaboration, these are going to become projects, both internal and external customer-facing billable projects, more application development and maintenance, doing things like ad hoc service requests, software development that may be for internal purposes or things to go to market with to external customers, and even down to levels of to-dos and action items that have to be tackled in order to support things up above. So what ends up happening, and we end up with a fairly complex mix and a hierarchy of things, and the evolution of project and portfolio management really should factor in all of these dimensions. So if we look at a typical or just a sample enterprise work management lifecycle, you've got the high level portfolio level planning, and in our case in Microsoft Project Online does a nice job of handling the portfolio level or the portfolio management aspects of this. If you look in the upper right, the whole idea of the start of a planning cycle is executive guidance and direction is about conducting high-level enterprise modeling, define financial and operational targets, and maybe some initiatives that we want to do to support that. But ultimately, to check the feasibility and what it's going to take to do that, it's got to push down and get some vetting from the execution level where the teams that have the subject matter expertise can tell us what it's going to take and if it's feasible for us to do those things. Now, down at that execution level, people are using a variety of different tool sets these days, whether it be things like Microsoft Project or Office 365 Planner, using simple list tools like Wunderlist or To-Do. On the Agile side, people are using development environments like Visual Studio, or using more issue or Agile-based tools like JIRA or version 1 to size and basically build out high-level initial plans to substantiate whether or not we should pursue these things. And then when that feedback goes back up to management, when that goes back up to management, then they end the planning cycle, end up choosing the things that they want to work on, and at the end of that planning cycle, these teams at the execution level will then execute based upon the preliminary planning that they've done. Now, in that mix, providing the right tool for the job according to the Gartner Group, there's different tools for different audiences, and Project Online is a great tool for the portfolio level piece of this, meaning people that would use this at the executive steering committee or even at the PMO level are interested in creating decision frameworks, selecting specific projects based on those frameworks, and then planning the delivery and tracking the investments that have been approved at a higher level, right? Not getting down into the gory details. Now, at the execution level, where we have this diversity of tools that are being used, these folks are interested in project and resource management to produce the tactical details and the execution pieces and communicate progress and expenditures back to management based upon the progress that's made down at these tactical levels. And the idea of the tool sets may not be one and the same. So how do we define a bimodal PPM or use cases around that? Well, it's a term that was coined by the Gartner Group back in 2015 when they referred to it as bimodal IT, but it's really defined as the practice of managing two separate yet coherent modes of IT delivery, one focused on stability and the other on agility. Now, mode one was defined as this more linear approach, more traditional PPM, more governance-driven type of approach, and the analogy used as a marathon runner. Projects, as we described earlier on, is having longer cycle times and using methodologies or approaches like Waterfall. Mode two, more of a non-linear approach, more iterative based, emphasizing agility and speed and managing and responding to change and uncertainty, using more agile approaches. And the analogy here is more of a sprinter, shorter cycle times and iterations, using various flavors of agile, lean, Kanban approaches, etc., in order to respond, and very popular among software development and even product development organizations. Now, the key here is there is a place, we believe, for both of these in organizations. And as the Gartner said, where there's most agile organizations have a blend of approaches and methods that they're using, this is kind of the mode that we're talking about, is having these working together. Now, from a disconnected systems and teams process, the traditional PMO or PPM and using the more governance-driven processes, oftentimes in a lot of organizations, Agile is considered a black hole to the PMO, that they don't have real-time visibility, kind of leadership's fear about going Agile. And the idea is that because there's separate tools being used at the team level, there's not an easy way in a lot of places to provide a view of a holistic portfolio to leadership by the PMO that incorporates the details of the information on the Agile teams, let alone applying CapEx and OpEx as we're often asked to do. On the other hand, the Agile teams sometimes feel the traditional PPM or governance-driven processes are overhead and add unnecessary burden to the Agile teams and make them less responsive, defeating in some ways their reasons for going Agile in the first place. But the paradox there is that by doing so, it often requires them to do double entry. Not only do they have to maintain and work the process that they're putting in place on the Agile side of things, they often have to duplicate entry on things like time and status and reporting up for the portfolio to leadership. So they're actually oftentimes updating these things in a minimum of 2 different places. So the idea is, how do we do this better? We need to find the right balance. An organization needs to have enough governance so that they can have management visibility and insight and alignment and control to make sure that we're running the business well. But the teams need to have enough agility so that we can innovate, have good time to market, and be responsive to the needs of the customer and the marketplace. So in this scenario, more of a unified PPM and Agile solution would, instead of having separate solutions or separate silos of information, would allow us to have a holistic portfolio that would be made up of different programs, product lines, whatever it might be. But regardless of what the project is and what methods are being used, whether it's more traditional waterfall type projects or more Agile approaches, to be able to have them have common visibility and a common language within a solution. In this new hybrid project management world, the team should be able to work in the methods that make the most sense for the type of project they're working, but leadership should expect at the program and portfolio levels information that's relevant and makes sense to them. So in the case we're going to talk about today, this business strategy tied to work execution, as we think about that hierarchy of unified work management, the blue bar across the top really represents Project Online as an end-to-end project and portfolio management solution, from demand and ideas all the way through portfolio management and all the different execution pieces and reporting all the way through. And it does a nice job of all that. And if we go down the left path down to where project is, in that waterfall approach, Microsoft Project and Project Web Access and Project Online have done a nice job of providing great tools for waterfall-driven projects. And lately, in the past months, Microsoft has added some initial Agile capabilities right into Microsoft Project so that we can do some basic Agile and iterative-based type of planning in that tool set. But that being said, if you go down the middle for Agile, because a lot of folks have already gone down a path and the train has already left the station, they're using other Agile tools. And I'll use Visual Studio and JIRA and version 1 and Rally as tools that are common out in the marketplace. But they've been using those as separate execution tools. Now, what we're doing today at Wickersoft is providing with our OneConnect, which is our Microsoft cloud-based integration platform, provides seamless integration between these other Agile tools and the portfolio that's being managed in Project Online, meaning Project Online can be the holistic intake and approval process and financial and capacity planning solution for an overall holistic portfolio. But if you choose to execute in another tool for your Agile pieces, like in this diagram, OneConnect will take care of bringing the data into the portfolio management solution from these other tool sets, as well as translating as needed the data that's needed so that leadership can see information about their investments and how they're tracking in a form and format and in terminology that makes sense to them. And down the right, there's a whole myriad of lighter weight planning tools. I'm using Office 365 Planner and SharePoint that's out there today, but even non-Microsoft tools that are out there like Asana and Rike and things like that could be something that pulls in more lightweight cloud-based planning information in the same fashion using OneConnect. So if we think about this, what we're going to show you today is about the new Microsoft Project Agile features. So for example, just like you had numbers of different templates for different waterfall types of projects, there are now templates in there for both Scrum and Kanban-based types of projects. And if we do that, notice in Microsoft Project, in just a sample view, you can do backlog and sprint planning. You can move things across progress-wise across a story or task board and have those feed into the portfolio using native Microsoft Project features. Now, to date, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles from an Agile perspective that you may find in a dedicated Agile tool, and it may get there, but there are some, if you don't have something in place, there are tools in there that you can use today. Now, the use case where Wickersoft's OneConnect really comes into play is that when they're using another solution for Agile, and in this case, at the upper diagram here, or the upper picture, Project Online is really meant to handle all the program and portfolio management, all the intake and investment approval, and any financial and capacity planning at the portfolio level that you want to handle. Now, if you're going to do waterfall projects, the onboard native Microsoft project option is there and does a very nice job of that. But if you're using, say, Visual Studio, that OneConnect will allow you to then have automatically tied to a portfolio item in Project Online a particular project, area path, or epic in Visual Studio, and allow you to plan out your backlog hierarchy, your epics features, user stories, task bugs, etc. Plan out your iterations and sprints, and any updates that you're making in Visual Studio will automatically flow back to Project Online. The same use case exists with JIRA. So the idea is if JIRA was your Agile tool of choice, you can plug it in and have OneConnect, have it interact seamlessly with Project Online in the same way as it's done in Visual Studio. Now, ultimately, you want to have portfolio management done in Project Online. But what this gives us the opportunity, as we're doing project requests, we can have one source of intake on project requests, regardless of whether or not we're ultimately going to manage them in a waterfall or an Agile fashion. We can start doing portfolio analysis that Matthew will show you a little bit today so that we can prioritize and select the highest value projects or the right things to be working on, and even look at overall capacity planning from a holistic perspective that includes both the planning that's done in the Agile tools as well as natively within Project Online. And that capacity planning gives us resource management that looks at all work potentially if we feed it from those different sources. Also, time management, one of the sources that often requires us going to different tools in an organization. You can actually put time spent into something like Visual Studio or JIRA and have it automatically populate via Wickersoft's OneConnect into the timesheet in Project Online so that people aren't going to two different places to make those things happen. And then from a reporting perspective, just the project intelligence, the ability to go into a place and look at more traditional portfolio management metrics, project management metrics for waterfall projects, but also for your Agile projects in the same dashboards, looking at things like your burn ups and burn downs and your velocity charts and your cumulative flow diagrams, the things that are of interest to the Agile culture. Those things can be all handled because we're building a combined rich data set that encompasses all of that. And Power BI, which has a natural feed to Project Online, allows us to render that information without having to mash it up or do anything unnatural. It becomes more of a natural output of your project management process. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Matthew Willey, who will walk you through a live demonstration of some of these concepts in action and show you what's here today.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jim. All right. So I'm logged in here into Project Online. Project Online is part of the Office 365 experience. It's one of the applications here, and it works really well with other applications like OneDrive, Power BI, we'll see in a little bit, but others as well. And what we're looking at is a list of all of our different projects. Some of these projects are in the requested state, some are approved, some are in progress. We can see status on the in progress projects here from an overall health perspective, schedule health, work health, resources, cost issues, etc., and even a high level timeline, roadmap, Gantt type of visual for these particular projects on the side as well. And so what Project Online has built into it and can allow you to do is lots of great portfolio planning capabilities where you can start at a high level and do top-down planning here. And then later on when we get to execution, we can decide how and where do we want to actually manage the execution of the work. But let's start at the beginning of the process and see what can be done. So as new requested projects come in, we can utilize a workflow, so to put some governance around this, to say we need to go from this stage to this stage to this stage, and to do so, there are certain approvals or things that need to happen before we can move on to the next stage. So getting it from requested into approved and ready for planning might be as simple as putting in all the right information around resources, budget, benefits, etc., and then sending out the different approval notices for people to go and review it, say, yep, this looks good, and then there you go, you're approved, here's your money, so on and so forth. And so we can move through these different stages here. Whether we're managing Agile projects or not, up front, there needs to be still some sort of an approval and governance to say, this is something we want to do. This is a new feature we want to build, or a new product we want to build for that matter, or whatever it might be at that level, right? Also, though, there's a tool built into Project Online called the Portfolio Analysis Tool. And what it allows me to do is what-if planning to figure out how to optimize my portfolio and maximize the benefit back to the business while staying within constraints. Constraints like we only have so much money, we only have so much resources, and how and when can we go and deliver on these things based off of our constraints and what we currently have. And so up front, you'd put in a resource plan, saying we think we need 5 people, 10 people, 100 people for the next 6 months, year. You can do some high-level top-down resource planning without having to build a detailed project schedule, and of which types of resources we need, basically what roles, business analyst, developer, project manager, so on and so forth. You can also put in high-level budgets, which can be at varying levels of detail, maybe quarterly broken out into categories, or monthly, or whatever level of detail that you deem is needed. That all totals up and rolls up into here, and then you also specify the value of the project, which can be measured more financially or more business benefits, or a little bit of both, and it's configurable to allow you to track that. And so then once you get into here, you say, okay, if I have a budget of $3 million to do this set of projects that we're looking at here, which ones should I do? And what it's telling me is you should do these ones here that are in the selected area. I should not do the ones that are in the unselected area. That's going to maximize my value. It's going to give me 76% of the value. If I was to do all projects, I get 100%, but I can't do them all because I only have so much money. I'm going to get, estimated benefits of about $7.1 million. We can pull in other information like ROI and NPV, IRR, any other metrics that you might be tracking into these different views here, and better understand where you should be putting these dollars to get the most business benefit. You're always in control, though, so if we have to do this project, regardless of whether it is in or out, maybe it's a government compliance project, then I can force things in, I can force things out. But when I force something in, that might push something else or multiple other things out. So you still have control. It's just trying to give you some better information so you can make some more objective decisions around which projects you want to invest in to get the most value. From there, you can go to a resource perspective on this. And so even if we have the dollars to do all the projects that we want to do, and different organizations are different, or maybe budget's already been approved, at this point though, we have limited resources. We can't just do all these projects all at the same time, generally. We have resource constraints as well in many organizations. And so what this is showing me here is, out of all the projects that I had budget for, which might have been all of them, possibly, any ones I didn't have budget for are already gone from this page. So now we're just looking at projects I had budget for on the last page. Now it's saying, which ones can, or even better, should we focus our resources on up front to get done to generate the most business value? And it's saying you should do these and you should not do those. But we have some ways of adjusting this and kind of building out our roadmap so that we can do things in priority order and value order, but not stress out our resources too much all at once, which then causes lots of problems. And so what I can do is I can go, well, what if we take some of these lower priority, lower value projects, and I simply move them out 3 months, 6 months, whatever it might be. I can stagger these a little bit better, and then I hit recalculate, and that will move some things in, because we're not asking our resources to work on all these at the same time, or when they're being asked to be done, we're staggering them and moving out things a little bit more. So that's one way to handle our resourcing and help to build our roadmap there within our resource constraints. The other way is, well, what if we're willing to hire? What if I'm willing to hire 3 resources? Those could be contractors, those could be full-time employees that we want to bring on board. But if I'm willing to increase my headcount in one way or another, then what can we do? And so I'll hit recalculate, and it goes and it chugs and it figures everything out. And it goes, okay, if you had 3 more resources, then you can do this 1 more project here. And so you can play around with that and go, okay, if I'm, scenario A, I'm going to hire this many resources. Scenario B, I'm going to move out these lower priority projects. Maybe scenario C is a combination of the both, and then we can decide as a business what we're comfortable with doing so that we can get these things done and when can we get them done, and be able to have a high-level plan before we get into the detailed execution, more of a top-down plan to start off with. Right. And a lot of times these are things that are missed, that don't necessarily happen. A project gets funded and approved, and then it's time to start it, but there aren't any resources there, and then it ends up starting late or taking longer than expected, and all kinds of problems arise from that. So this can help to alleviate that and have a plan to start with. So from there, in either case, whether you're just doing a set of approvals or utilizing the portfolio analysis module here, whatever process you have for getting a project approved, at that point, then, we have one list of all the different projects in our site to be able to see all the projects and how they're doing and what state they're in. And now we can go and start building our detailed plan and then actually executing on that project. Traditionally, I would come in and I would select my project, and I would go, I want to open this up in Microsoft Project Desktop or the online planner, and I build out a waterfall schedule. And or you could start from a template, so you can put in some best practice templates in here so people don't have to build those from scratch. And you can still do that today, and maybe some of your projects are waterfall, some are agile. That's fine. You can manage waterfall projects right from here. In fact, there are actually agile capabilities that have been built into the Project Desktop to date as well these days. It's newer capabilities in here, but there are some agile capabilities you can use as well. So if I open that project up in Project Desktop, I could actually now these days come in, build out a list of the different items I want to do, features, stories, whatever they might be, epics, etc., depending on what level you're planning at, and say I need to do things like create a new homepage, I want to do a VSTS integration, I want to fix bugs, performance improvements, so on and so forth. You can drag and drop those into a particular sprint. So I'll put these few things into this sprint, and then I'll put these guys into the next sprint, and you can kind of plan things out and do your sprint planning in here. And then I can go into my current sprint board, and I can see the different work items that I put into here, and then update the status of those from one to the next. And I think my dates are off here. Oh, yeah, that's why. So that's not my current sprint. But in any case, then you can update the different statuses from one to the next and utilize the Kanbans in here to do some light agile management of your project. So, but in many organizations, your agile teams are already using another agile tool, and that agile tool might have a lot of other DevOps type features in it, source code management, test management, so on and so forth. And so in that case, I need to be able to manage it and allow people to continue using the tools that they're using that are working for them and providing value, but still have a connection between them so we don't have to require duplicate entry of data and have disconnected systems that cause all the issues that Jim was talking about earlier. So for that case, let's say I'm utilizing VSTS, Visual Studio Team Services, or the on-prem version of that is TFS, Team Foundation Services. In either case, we can connect to both. And so I can come here, instead of opening that up in Project Desktop, I'm going to open that up in VSTS. When I click that button, if the project doesn't yet exist in VSTS, it will create it at that point. If it does already exist, then it just links me over here and drops me into that project so I can go in and start doing my planning. If I work in VSTS all day long, I'm a developer, let's say, I can just log into VSTS like I always do once that project's been created and work on my things and do what I normally do. So I can come in here now and I can start doing my planning. So I have different epics. I might want to break those out into different features, break my features down into different user stories, tasks, bugs, etc. And you're not locked into this structure. You can do any structure that you might have set up in VSTS. The integration isn't specific to that. It's flexible. But let's say I want to plan these different user stories into particular sprints or iterations. And then I can go into those particular sprints and iterations. I can start assigning things to people, or people can just pick them up depending on how your process works, and what versions of Agile you're using, whether it's Scrum or another methodology. But in any case, those work items will get assigned to people. We will update status on those items by dragging and dropping them through the Kanban board. And I might even put estimates of time and or actual amounts of time. I spent 10 hours working on this. Or you could track points, or some people do both, points and hours. Really up to you. In any case, as you're creating these items, as you're assigning them and updating status and putting the estimates of effort and actual effort on these items, we can send that all back into Project Online. That can happen on a timed basis, as often as every hour. Go and grab all the updates and pull that over into Project Online, or on demand when you go and you come here and you click a button to say, I want to push this information over to Project Online. So you have some options there. That gets it back into Project Online, and now we'll take a look and see what that looks like, how it comes in, what does that do for us. So if I go into that same project back here in Project Online, my Fabricam project, and I'm going to come in, I'm going to switch my view here, and I'll show you a few different ways that you can look at it. This first view here has it grouped by sprint. So what I'm looking at is, here are all the items that were planned into sprint 1 or iteration 1, and here are all the items that were planned into sprint 2, iteration 2, and so on and so forth as you continue to do your planning. And so this solves the kind of status issue. I want to know what things are up and coming, what's the status of those items, so that I can better communicate that out to our stakeholders, to our customers, etc. And so this helps give visibility into that all within one place with all my other projects, instead of Agile projects being over here and Waterfall projects being over here and having to kind of manually mush things together to get that one view of how these projects are doing and what's going on. But there are other ways you can look at this as well. If I just simply update my view here, I could say group this by epic, then feature, then story. And that's going to give me a very similar view to what we saw over in VSTS in the backlog view. So I'm going to go epic, feature, story, say OK. And now we'll see here are my epics broken down into my different features, into my different stories, and then the different tasks and bugs below that. And then all the details about those items that roll in from VSTS. And if you have custom fields over in VSTS that you want to bring into it here as well to provide some additional information, that's all just settings within the integration. It's no code change required. There are admin pages that allow you to map fields and configure and change over time as well how these integrations are going to work. So that gives me the status and the visibility into what's going on. The next piece that I might be interested in, one of the value points here, is really around resourcing. It's a question in many organizations that's hard to answer, is who is working on what and who has availability, who's over allocated and not. Sometimes there are many other spreadsheets or other systems or whole other things utilized to try to figure out who's, how to answer those questions. In this case, I simply come in, I selected all my business analysts here, so I just want to look at my business analysts, but I could have selected everyone. I can then click on capacity planning, and this is going to take me into just one view, and there are multiple different views with different levels of detail and such. This is going to show me one view of who's working on what and who's over allocated, who's not, who has availability. Amy here is working on 4 different projects. Some of these might be Waterfall projects managed right here in Project Online. Some might be Agile projects managed in Project Online. Some might be over in VSTS. We have integration with other Agile tools like, say, JIRA, for example, and some organizations use all 3. And so it doesn't matter where that project's actually being executed on and managed. Since we're rolling back in the right information, we can now see, okay, Amy's working on these 4 things, and she is over-allocated. We need to get her some help. Whereas other people don't have much going on. They have availability. We can give them some more work. And this is just one view. As I mentioned, there are many other views and reports and different ways to look at this, but the basis is automatically all this information rolls together so we can get better visibility into our resources. If you're pulling in operational work and or creating high-level operational work buckets, like, say, partner help desk, working on the help desk a certain amount of the time, then you really get a true picture of operational work, Agile work, Waterfall work, all together in one place to better understand, who's working on what, who's available and such. The last piece of this then is really around timesheets. So in a lot of organizations, timesheets are still a requirement. Management needs to see and understand where the hours are going, and a lot of times those get translated into costs, and we need to understand CapEx versus OpEx costs. These may even be sent into your financial system from here, whether it's Oracle, SAP, others. We have connectors to be able to send that information into financial systems as well. And you don't want people to have to go put in their time in multiple places. It's hard enough to get people to put in their time once, let alone trying to get them to put it in multiple different systems multiple times. So what this does is at the end of the week, instead of having to come in and refill out your timesheet with any information you already put in VSTS, that would already be here. You might just need to add some things like admin time, sick time, vacation, any waterfall project work you may have worked on, come and fill in all of that. So I can save and submit my timesheet. Now we have time all in one place, and we can report off of that, and then again integrate and send it to financial systems and such if necessary. So that helps bring that all together without the dual entry. At the end of the day, then we can create really robust reports and dashboards, and we have a ton of them out of the box, and we'll take a look at a couple of them right now that allow managers, executives, others to then look at, okay, initially we planned we were going to do this, here's what actually happened, roll that all up together into meaningful dashboards to give people visibility into what's going on without having to do a lot of manual mushing together and building of reports that can really eat into efficiency and take a lot of time. Also, this is always up to date. It's near real-time data that we can see as it's automatically flowing in, right? So what we're looking at here is an Agile PPM portfolio dashboard. What that means is some of our projects are Agile within this portfolio or portfolios. Some of them are Waterfall, but we're going to blend it all together into one place. So as a manager, I don't have to go to VSTS to try to look at things, you know, for the Agile projects and separately go to Project Online to look at the Waterfall projects. I can just come to Power BI and get all the information I need as a manager, executive, whoever it might be, all within one place. On the left side, I'm seeing things that are more traditionally waterfall types of metrics like cost and risk and ROI, but these are actually across all of our projects. So this is the true portfolio costs versus our budget here in this gauge of all projects, not just the waterfall or Agile separately. It's all blended together in one place. If I scroll down, this is the project status of all of our projects, Agile, Waterfall, Other. If I keep going, we can get into resourcing information around these projects. And again, it's across all projects, not just one or the other. But on the right side, we can also do more traditional Agile types of metrics, things like sprint burn-ups, burn-downs, bug trends over time. Hopefully they're not going up, that our bug trends are going down. Cumulative flow diagrams, are we keeping up with the amount of new feature requests that our users and or customers, internal or external, have for us, you know, so on and so forth, all right from this place. And then if you want more detail, you can simply click into any one of these and get that. So like if I click on the project status one here, that will drill me into the full version of the report where I can then get a lot more detail if I want. So I can start at that high level, but I can drill down into more detail as I choose to do so. So from here, what we're looking at now is a list of all of our projects. Again, some are Agile, some are Waterfall, some might even be hybrid, a mixture of both. I see the status of those, I see key information, I go, okay, 4 of my projects are off track, 6 have overdue issues, 22 are behind schedule, some are over budget. You can click on things like this pie chart here. I can click on the red part, which will drill in and just allow me to look at just my projects where overall status is red, so it's all very interactive. Or I could filter this down just for a particular portfolio. I just want to see my cost-cutting portfolio projects. So you can utilize all the filters to kind of get a pinpoint on just the projects that you're interested in seeing. And then across the bottom, there are different tabs to see different aspects of the projects. For example, the timeline tab here is going to show me the high-level timeline or roadmap of these projects, when they're planning to happen and how that all lines up. So when can I expect things to be done and to be coming out and be available, these new pieces of value, whether they're Agile, Waterfall, or Other, right? Going down the line, I can start to get into cost information if I'm interested, budgets versus actuals, what's remaining, and understand how we're doing from a cost perspective. Into work, you know, how much time are we spending, issues, on all the way into more detailed things like issues, risks, etc. If I'm interested in that. So I can start at that high level, get one dashboard with all of the information, drill down into any details I want from there with just a few clicks. And that can be very, very powerful to have that information at your fingertips without having to do lots of manual work and have developers writing queries and Excel exports and imports and all of that. So with that, I will turn it back over to Jim for just a few more closing slides, and then we'll let you guys go for the day. So there you go, Jim.
Thank you, Matthew.
No problem.
Let me grab the screen back here. All right. So let's talk about some summarizing of this and some next steps. So thank you for the wonderful demonstration. The One Connect capability that we discussed that, enables the interactions with things like Visual Studio and with JIRA in these Agile PPM use cases is provided by Wickersoft, and it is our Microsoft cloud-based connector platform. And in this case, Project Online can become the center of the universe of all the project and portfolio management information and aggregating all of the execution information from the different execution tools. Just be aware that this Agile use case is just one use case. People use One Connect to integrate with their financial or ERP or HR systems. Lighter weight project and work management solutions, their service management tools, or even their CRM tools, because sometimes when you have customer-facing projects, the opportunities and the customer-facing things that you're working on in CRM are the demand or the input to become projects in Project Online. This is just some of the use cases that we have. So if you have other integration needs, be aware that we can actually help you and maybe discuss that with you as well. The value of overall integration here is really improved portfolio alignment to organizational goals and objectives, meaning when you look at this more holistically and you start doing prioritization and alignment of your projects, like Matthew showed you in the portfolio analysis capabilities, we're factoring in all work and we're looking at it in a more complete fashion instead of doing it in segments or silos. Also, providing robust project portfolio management software can integrate all work into a single view. So it doesn't matter what methods or what tactical tools you're using. Having Project Online and One Connect bring that data together gives you all work into a common forum. And One Connect really and quickly and reliably brings together disparate business systems. So the silos that we talked about in the earlier concept slides, we really bridge the gap with this and really make them work in harmony and seamlessly together so that things do flow well and provide you the information that you're looking for on demand. The resource management piece of it, providing holistic views of resource availability and efficiency and effectiveness of use of that in a common data set is something that's very powerful and a pain point for a lot of organizations. Ultimately, that allows for better forecasting and setting more realistic expectations with our customers, meaning that we're going to be making commitments based on more complete information, meaning our chances of delivering on those things for our customers goes up dramatically. And just overall improved governance for planning and execution and reporting happens as a byproduct of having this all work together. From a hybrid project management perspective and the use of different tool sets that are the preference of different groups or teams, if you keep users working in their primary and preferred tools and solutions, they become happier and more effective in what they're working with, and hopefully they're using tools that are more conducive to the type of work that they're doing. Also, from lighter weight tools or the methods that are used by allowing users to work in the tools appropriate for their role or their maturity in the project management process, makes them more effective and doesn't burden them with tools that have too much complexity or capabilities that don't fit what they're trying to do. By removing that unnecessary complexity, we can improve user adoption. And by doing that, we get better participation and better compliance for the data, meaning more complete data, more accurate data, because people are interacting with the data in a more fruitful way. Ultimately, that drives better collaboration across all areas of the business, and we get more complete and current information. Now, ultimately, by having that detail roll up from different tactical places and feed up to leadership, the idea is everybody gets what they need and what they want in that scenario. And the pain points of mashing that stuff up manually like it happens today gets minimized or goes away entirely if we do this correctly. Now, about Wickersoft, our role in this is that we are a global company that was founded as a joint venture with Microsoft back in 2002. As a matter of fact, Microsoft is a 25% owner of Wickersoft. We do have a global footprint. We are a triple gold certified Microsoft partner. We have certifications in project and portfolio management, collaboration and content, as well as cloud productivity. And we really have a proven track record of providing capabilities in project and portfolio management and just extending that concept to overall work management for hundreds of organizations. We are a one-stop shop, meaning business applications or IP that we develop Things like our One Connect is just one example from our integration platform that augments or supplements or enhances what's being done with the Microsoft platform and things like Project Online. We have a whole array of technologies that have been that we've added to the mix, as well as the consulting services to help you implement and become effective and get the value you're looking for out of your investment in the Microsoft Cloud. We provide all the education and training around the things that we put in place, as well as even staffing services or providing execution of these things as a managed service for people. So think of us as a one-stop shop that can handle your needs or your resource constraints. Now, we do all this in the entire Microsoft platform stack. So we talked about Microsoft Project Online for project and portfolio management today, the Visual Studio pieces and the Agile pieces people want to do, including scaling Agile. We have expertise in helping people with the Visual Studio piece with that. Just an overall digital workplace that people are doing and leveraging the SharePoint platform in Office 365. We have a lot of solutions and capabilities that we've developed there and help people implement. And even in Dynamics 365, from Microsoft with professional services automation and field service management. Once again, extending this concept to overall work management, right? That concept and theme goes across the entire Microsoft platform, or these pillars of the platform, and all leverage things like the Microsoft Cloud, the Office 365 Cloud, and Power BI. So from a next steps perspective, we do have some special offers for you today. If you're interested in what you've seen today and are curious of what it would take to get you into these technologies and into these solutions, we will actually provide you with a free assessment and roadmap of what it will take, have some dialogue with you about your current situation and the future state that you'd like, and kind of give you an idea of what it might take. And we'll do that all as a free complimentary effort. Also, if you're interested, we can offer a Wickersoft chaperoned Project Online trial experience. Set you up a trial experience of Project Online and actually get you in it and provide some support to make sure you're getting the most value and the most return out of your time invested in that trial. And we gave you a very generic demonstration today, so a personalized one-on-one demo that is more focused on your requirements and your use cases is something that we can offer as well. Once again, all done on a complimentary basis. If you want to reach out to us, you can reach us at contactus@wickersoft.com. We're going to send you copies of the slides and a recording of this webinar. Matthew and my contact information are on the cover slide as far as email address if you want to reach out to us directly as well. And we have additional website information at wickersoft.com or at project-online.com, and some specific things on OneConnect at wickersoft.com/projectconnect. We do webinars on a weekly basis, so we have a rich library of on-demand webinars that you can go look at if there's some topics you might want to look at, and then just look at it at your leisure. And we also have a list of upcoming webinars that you might want to register for as well. With that, I'd just like to thank you all for spending time with us today. I know your time is valuable. Hopefully you got some value out of the time spent today and saw some interesting ideas that might pique your interest. And we'd welcome the opportunity, and we'd love the opportunity to interact with you further after that. So expect within the next 24 hours to get a copy of the slides and a link to the recording of this webinar. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.